Nick,
Yes.
how many cows did we see in Twister Original?
Was it 2?
1.
1.
And how many cows did we see in Twisters?
None.
Is it watchable?
Let's find out. Hello there, Clapperheads, and welcome to a brand new edition of ClapperTalks. I'm Nick Dorian.
And I'm Kelvin Tay.
And today we're going to be talking about Universal and Warner Brothers Pictures' latest release, Twisters.
With an S.
With an S, because that's how you make a sequel. You just add an S at the end of it.
Dodge whatever's in there. It's big and it's moving fast. Drive. Go, go, go!
Then why do they call it Fast and Furious?
It's like instead of Fast and Furious 2, it's Fast and Furious with like double S.
Yes, exactly.
And then the third one
they
is like
just
3.
keep adding S's. So by the time you get to the 10th one, it's Fast and Furious.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds about like 10 S's.
But yes, we're not talking about fast cars. We're going to be talking about fast tornadoes. Because tornadoes can be... Hey, look, when you watch the film, you saw how quick a tornado can come to you.
Okay.
So I'm not wrong there. They are quick.
To each its own. To each its own.
So, Twisters, if you're unaware, is the sequel to the 1996 film Twister. I mean, we never thought we'd see a sequel to Twister.
Of all things.
Of all things.
Of all things, yeah.
But it feels like there's a renaissance period where we're getting standalone sequels or sequels to old classic films of the 90s. Yep. I mean, I think I talked to you, we had this with Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters Afterlife did a fantastic job of reigniting the whole Ghostbusters franchise. And while this isn't a franchise, it's a good addition to the sequel, to the original film that we didn't know we needed.
I agree.
Like, they brought everything that worked and improved on it and made it slightly lighter as well.
The once-in-a-generation tornado outbreak continues across Oklahoma.
We've never seen tornadoes like this before, and we need your help.
No, I don't chase anymore.
Kate, we can save lives.
I'll give you 1 week.
All right, fellas. We got PhDs from NASA, FEMA, and Kate. She's the smartest person I know.
Hey, dudes. This is interesting.
Did you watch the original?
Yes, I did. I watched it last night. As of
Yes.
this recording, yeah.
Did you realize how much more, compared to Twisters, how much more darker and more focused on the disaster elements it was compared to this?
I agree.
I think at that time you had films like Volcano, Dante's Peak, that Sylvester Stallone tunnel film. I can never remember the name of that one. But you had all these disaster films which were just vying for attention. And Twister dominated because it was always so different. Because yes, we've got volcano films.
Because it's so real, I would say.
Sort of, because you know volcanoes are real. You've got an earthquake film, earthquakes are real, but I don't think anybody's really done anything like tornadoes.
Fine, fair enough. Besides Sharknado.
Yeah.
But we're not here to talk about Sharknado. I'm sorry to cut you off. But
Sharknado. But this brought a new a generation at that time terrified of hurricanes and tornadoes. In America, it happens a lot more often. In Malaysia, we are blessed. We don't really get that many tornadoes, but they have been cropping up, especially over Penang side for some reason.
Yeah.
I've been seeing the one on the water. You know, climate change is real, guys, if you didn't know. But we didn't get to experience something like that. So other countries, when they got the film, they were like, this is terrifying.
Yeah.
This is like what Jaws did for sharks in the water, Twister did for tornadoes in the sky.
Yep.
Because that's where they come from. I'm in a very blur mood at the moment because I just woke up like literally an hour ago because I woke up late. So my mind is still getting there.
Okay.
But I feel Twisters is carrying on the legacy that Twister brought behind. Like, they're not trying to do something new with it. They're like, okay, what worked? Let's continue doing that, but let's make it more lighthearted and fun. Because I feel that was what was missing from the original.
Yeah, I feel like after watching the original, now that you pointed it out, yes, they do focus a lot on the disasters and the aftermath of it and the people who are really, really, really affected.
Yeah.
And then the recent Twisters are more on the prevention than the what ifs, right?
Yes.
And one thing I realized straight off the get-go is that Twister, the original one, did not age as well in terms of CGI, but Twisters, the new one, the one that we just watched, I'm glad and grateful that they did a whatever you want to call this, a remake, a remaster, a sequel itself.
Yeah.
Because with the technology and CGI we have today, oh my god, it
Yes.
made it hit home a lot closer,
Yeah.
right? Because the sound of the wind, the graphics of the tornado, and then are we doing spoilers?
Maybe not because the film just came out.
Okay.
So let's try and avoid spoilers
Okay.
for now.
And basically just the sound effects and the CGI itself
Mm.
made it so much better. Maybe it's also the fact that we watched it in IMAX.
Yeah.
That every bass, everything that hits on screen, you can actually feel it in your chest.
Yes.
Yeah.
And side note, if you really want to feel this, what I've been hearing, go and catch Twisters in 4DX. Because
Oh.
apparently that is an experience. And honestly, I feel ashamed that I didn't think of that earlier. Watching Twisters in 4DX is going to be brilliant.
Okay.
I probably need to do that soon. But I agree with you. The original film, to me at least, in terms of story and the effects of it, minus the CGI effects, it still kind of holds up. The film still kind of holds up to this day, but I get what you mean about the CGI and whatnot. But also, what makes this film great as well, which makes it even more terrifying, is the fact that they utilized more practical effects. The only CGI you will see is, of course, the tornadoes and whatnot. But all the disaster elements, that was all done practical effects, just like how it was done back in the day. And this is why I still keep this argument about practical effects still being better than CGI. Like with practical effects, there is that realism. Like you talk about, that it feels close to home because it feels like they are genuinely fighting all these elements that are coming at them because they are technically on the film set. So I feel like the way that they use the practical effects in this made it a lot more terrifying than it would be if they just use CGI for everything.
Yep, I agree.
Now, what made this film also work is the original, of course, had Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton, the late, great Bill Paxton.
I just want to say, right?
Yes.
I just want to say, when I was younger, when I was watching the first Twister, one of my biggest celebrity crush back then
Was
was
Bill
Helen
Paxton.
Hunt. Helen Hunt. Okay. Helen Hunt was beautiful. She's gorgeous, right?
Yeah.
And when I saw the most recent one, I have a new star crush now, right? And that is Daisy Edgar-Jones.
Yeah.
Oh my god, she's so beautiful. She is so beautiful.
And that brings me on to my next point, actually, is
I want to cut you off one more time
Okay.
real quickly.
Okay.
Let's not discount how bloody gorgeous Glenn Powell is in this film. Because, oh man.
It's Tyler Owens. Calls himself the Tornado Wrangler. If you feel it, chase it! I said if you feel it, chase it!
that man can be charming in. He could be a homeless person and he still be
And
as
he's- yeah.
charming as hell.
Yep.
That man has just. He's oozing charisma.
He is oozing charisma, both in Top Gun
Yeah.
here as well.
And he feels like one of those classic golden age handsome
Yep.
actors. People
That he
like
does.
Clark Gable, Rock Hudson, that kind of charm. I would say he's a mix between McConaughey and Cruise for some reason.
I mean, he did come out and mention that, Cruise is one of his biggest inspirations.
Yeah.
Right? And there are a couple of comments online saying that he tries to emulate Cruise so much that he lost his own personality. But I just want to say, in this film itself, in Twisters itself, he held up the entire cast, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree with you to a certain aspect. I also feel Daisy Edgar-Jones also literally held the movie on her own. And I feel there's a lot of Helen Hunt's energy coming through with Daisy Edgar-Jones, but the second half of it.
Okay.
Like, of course, this is common knowledge, but Twisters, in the beginning, Daisy Edgar-Jones' character is basically suffering from the loss of her whole team getting not destroyed, but they got injured within a massive tornado that happened 5 years ago. And she's still reeling from that whole incident. So she starts off very meek, worried, insecure. But by the time you get to the midpoint and you start to see the confidence coming back, I'm like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
I see a lot of Helen Hunt in you.
Okay.
Going headfirst into a tornado, strong-willed, not taking no for an answer. And even when... we can't talk about that. That's spoilers. So go watch the film yourself and you'll understand. But Glenn Powell, on the other hand, I love Bill Paxton. I love Bill Paxton to death.
Okay.
But Glenn Powell brings a very different energy. He brings that sort of rough,
Paul.
tumble... No, don't...
I hate to say this, but his character was built upon Jake Paul's character as a typical YouTuber that you can think of.
Okay, that I understand.
A tornado wrangler.
Yeah.
Right?
That I
YouTube.
understand. But I just hate Jake Paul. I hate the Pauls, but...
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But I'm talking about just his character only.
But I get that. Because in the beginning, you really hate his guts.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was so annoyed
Yeah.
with him. I'm like, it's these kind of YouTubers who just go and find tornadoes for clicks and views and stuff like that and don't really take it very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And then after you watch the film, you're like, I can't help but love this guy.
Right.
Because he's so damn pretty.
His aesthetics aside, right? Let's
Yeah.
just talk about the actors here. Okay?
Yes.
Let's just talk about the actors, starting with Glenn Powell's performance.
Yes.
Right. His character start off. I'm trying my best to hold back all the information because again, this show has only came out yesterday in TV.
Today, actually.
Today.
No, yesterday. Yes,
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yesterday, and a lot of you might be wondering if this is a film that is worth watching. I'm just gonna start off really plainly.
Yes, it is.
If you like me grew up with the original Twister film, right, and you are a huge fan of disaster film, go out and watch this one. Don't listen to people's negative comments. It's definitely one of the summer blockbuster that you go out, you have a good time. You know, you look at some tornadoes, you look at some twisters. Unfortunately, there's no cows, but
There's chickens.
spoiler alerts, there's chickens, right?
Well, actually, a chicken. Because while there's several chickens that you see flying, you only see one.
Okay, fair enough, right? No cows, there's chickens. Amazing blockbuster film if you manage your expectations.
Yes.
Okay?
Like, I think we'll come back to Glenn Powell in a bit because we need to come back to Glenn Powell. But with sequels of old films that come out or reboots or whatnot, they sometimes tend to be a bit of a failure. Things like that Pirates of the Caribbean film where they didn't bring back Keira Knightley and whatnot. That was a failure. Roadhouse, well, it's not really a failure, but it did well, but it still wasn't the original film in a sense.
Fall Guys?
Fall Guy worked as well because it was based on a TV show. I'm trying to figure out which ones didn't quite work. Sequels to... I'm really hoping Beetlejuice holds up.
Ooh,
You see
Michael
that?
Keaton?
Yeah. There's this, like I said, there's this renaissance period of doing sequels to films that came out 20 years
Bring
ago.
the 90s back.
I want to see Knight Rider. Do Knight Rider.
Oh my God.
A-Team. A-Team was like
A-Team.
a remake, reboot
A-Team.
that kind of
Yeah.
went, it didn't quite work.
Yep.
So, of course, with Twisters, one, I don't think anybody asked for a sequel. Two,
Yep.
I don't think anybody expected a sequel. And there was, of course, a lot of hesitation and what the other word, I can't think of the other word. There was a lot of hesitation towards this film because we're like, do we really need it? And then after watching the film, I'm like,
Yes, we do.
don't really need it?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
There's not enough disaster films out there.
Sharknado. A bad CGI alligator. That's another one. I don't think I need to talk to you about that one. But this, while it doesn't, I don't think it has the same effect that the original did because at that time, there were not a lot of disaster films. So
Yeah.
people got terrified from that film. You're not going to be terrified of this film, but you are also going to realize Mother Nature is a scary, scary thing. And the fact that this does happen a lot, especially in the States, it really shows the realism of how much devastation a tornado does to a town.
Yeah.
And so you're not as scared as the previous film was, but you're more shocked that this is true. This
Yeah.
is what happens. This is disastrous in a very different sense.
I mean, it's one thing, you know, looking at tornadoes and the aftermath of it on
Yeah.
like an article or like on a YouTube or like on TV, for example.
Yeah.
But I feel like they really depicted tornadoes as something that you don't really mess around with.
Yeah.
Right? Especially in this film, and how they added layers upon layers of like sound effects and like visual effects just to make it so bloody real. You are in the front end of this. You are front facing it.
Yes.
You know, and it's like a couple of meters away from you, and it's like you don't F around with this thing.
Yeah.
Right?
And I also like that they kept that element of, in the first one, it was still, which is better, science and technology, or just trusting your instinct and
Yeah.
watching the skies and from there. And I like how the film brought that back. It actually, if you look at it, it follows the same plot points and formula as the original film did.
More or less, yeah.
Which is why I'm like, you know what? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
That still works. And instead of, you know, scientists and researchers, they brought in that whole YouTube element of people who look at the sky
Yeah.
and figure that out. Because I think, what was it? Because Bill Paxton was a weatherman at that point who
Yep.
still looks at the skies. This time it's Glenn Powell and his massive charm being a YouTuber. And I thought that was actually a genius element because don't tell me in this day and age, there's not some YouTubers out there trying to get views by going into tornadoes.
So I did some homework about that.
Did you find any?
Yes.
I knew it.
Yes, there are.
I knew it.
Right.
So
they don't go into it, but they go around it.
but still,
Yeah,
there is that
yeah.
thing of chasing
Yep,
tornadoes.
Yep.
So that brings another real element into it. And seeing all the technology that Anthony Ramos's character, Harvey, brought into play is like, things have gotten way more advanced now about chasing tornadoes that I never knew about.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow.
Because just the contrast there, right? Watching Twisters 1 and then Twisters,
Yeah.
which is the second one, right? It's funny because in Twister 2, I'm just gonna call it Twister 1 and Twister 2, okay? Because it's a lot of all right.
Yes.
So in Twisters 2, we saw a lot of data, a lot of computers, right?
Yes.
There's drones, there's like, you know,
3D
right?
imagery.
There's GPS.
Yes.
Right? And then watching back Twister 1 last night, I realized they had a guy, I forgot who was it played by, but his whole job was just reading maps. And he had
yes.
maps and books, and there's even one whole line telling his colleague, it's like, don't fold the maps, roll the maps.
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
I was like, oh, wow. Like, it really puts you into perspective of like how much technology have advanced, let's just say in the context of chasing twisters, for example, or like
Yeah.
chasing tornadoes, for example, right?
Yeah.
Where they can just use a GPS now instead of relying on a guy to like see where you are, where you can turn, and
Yes.
then radio in. It's like, oh, you had to turn right up here.
Yeah.
But amazing updates.
But in that same vein, technology can fail you.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, we saw many points where they were following the technology
Yeah.
and then they saw, oh no, it's actually that way. We should have just trusted our instinct. So it still cements that fact that while technology is great in many ways, it does fail us in many other ways as well.
Yep.
Which is a cautionary tale to don't trust technology so much.
Fair enough.
Because, you know, trust your gut, trust your instincts, trust nature. Because nature will never let you down. And neither will Glenn Powell. That's a good segue to get back into him. Because Glenn
Okay.
Powell will never let you down.
Glenn Powell as a hillbilly, as a cowboy,
Yeah.
with his bloody chiseled jawline and his smile.
Man, that man's good looking.
We're just two heterosexual guys oogling over Glenn Powell. That's the power he has.
You would come into this and go, oh, they must be swooning over Daisy Edgar-Jones.
Yeah.
Yes, but Glenn Powell.
Yes, I agree. I agree. And this is not the first film we saw him in this year. There's like 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he had Hitman.
Yeah.
I think Anyone But You was this year as well.
Okay.
Hitman, I haven't seen yet, but I heard he's great in it.
Okay.
And he's a hitman, so he has multiple disguises. So he really gets to show his range of
Right,
acting because he's
right.
playing different characters. But I've heard that's pretty good. So I need to see that as well.
Okay.
The only last thing that I saw him in was, of course, Top Gun.
Yep.
And I loved him in Hidden Figures, where he played John Glenn,
Yeah.
one of the astronauts. And I'm like, that's perfect choice. He looks like a bloody astronaut. But he's always been great in whatever he does. And I think that's because, one, of his charm, And two, he has this subtle acting that he really knows how to have fun with his roles. And when he has fun, we have fun as well.
Yep.
And you can't help but enjoy every time he goes out and chases a tornado. Like, it looks so much fun to watch him chase a tornado.
It looks like every time he goes out to chase a tornado,
Yeah.
he's bound to die.
Yeah.
Right?
He lives life on the edge,
Yeah, right.
really.
Sorry, I just wanted to check what was spoiler and what wasn't spoiler territory, so that we can have a very clean episode for you to prep yourself into Twister.
Yes. Spoilers, they're tornadoes.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So we were talking about Glenn Powell before the clap.
Yeah.
His acting.
Yes.
Okay. Let's go towards his acting.
Okay.
I mentioned he carried the entire cast.
Yeah.
Okay. Mainly because he was such a typical hated character, right? That people would be like, oh man, it's this guy again. He's in the scene, basically like a high school jock, right?
Yes.
That people fear,
Yeah.
right? But I love the arc. Again, I don't know what is spoiler.
Yeah.
All right. I love the arc of how his character. Let me put it this way.
Yeah.
Okay. Twisters, the title Twisters is not about tornadoes. It's about how each and everyone's life intertwined together. That's how I would put it.
Chill.
Right? Because the plot itself,
Yeah.
like a twister, brings you everywhere.
Yeah.
You're like, crap, am I supporting this person? Am I not supporting this person now? Wait, are we all friends again?
Yeah.
Right? And yes, there is a tornado moving around. The whole plot of them is chasing the tornado. But in between all that plot breaks, right, you can see the character development going better and better and better, right?
Yes.
And that's what I truly enjoy about this film.
You truly get to see like you said, the arc of his character. And while you start hating him, well, actually, no, I didn't start hating him. I mean, I just was like, oh, it's one of them, but damn, he's sexy as hell.
Yeah.
But he's one of them.
Yeah.
But
Because
after
there's-
a while, you really fall in love with his character because there's something so true and sincere about his character. While on the outside, it feels like this whole YouTuber. On the inside, there's a sense of sincerity. And when you get to see the surprise about him, it's like, oh, all of this makes sense. And he's a lot smarter than we think he is.
You know what's one thing I realized when I was comparing it when I was comparing Twister 1 to Twister 2? Do you realize the point of view that we've watched was the balik? So in Twisters 1, right? In Twister, we were following following Bill Paxton and Helen's Hunt character, right?
Yes.
William and Dr. Joe.
Yeah.
What kind of vehicles their team were in?
The vans. Oh, yeah, they were all in the vans, the
Right.
red pickup
And
truck.
who was the antagonist? What was the antagonist vehicles like?
Wait, what was the antagonist vehicles like? I forgot. I only remember the pickup truck and the vans.
Black vans, black
Oh,
pickup
yes, yes,
truck,
yes, yes.
yeah, right?
Yes,
right.
Carrie L's character, yes, who
Yeah.
was all about science and
And then
technology.
for Twisters,
It's the
it
opposite
was
side.
opposite. It was the ballet.
Yeah.
Right? That made me think a lot. Mainly because we are seeing different perspective of in Twisters 2. We are following Daisy Edgar-Jones and Anthony
Ramos.
Ramos's character of how they have this new military tech and how they're gonna like do like big scans of the tornadoes,
Yeah.
right? And then halfway through the movie, you get a bunch of like hillbillies and rednecks, cowboy coming out with like YouTube videos like, "Whoa, we're gonna chase it."
And drones.
Let me just put it this way, okay? His title is called the Tornado Wrangler,
Yeah.
right? And how redneck, you know, how much more redneck can you get? Because how do you even wrangle a tornado?
Yeah.
And then you see their vehicles come out, and it's just like a bunch of scrappy cars and a very scrappy caravan as well.
Yeah.
And you're like, what are these people trying to achieve?
Yeah.
Right? And then the more you go in, you start to realize they are just normal people
Yeah.
making content,
Yes.
right? And then we have Ramos's characters and his crew, right? PhD people, really smart, intelligent people, all white collar in the field, right? I don't want to go more into details because I would eventually spoil something, and I really don't want to give you that horrendous image of spoiling it for
Yeah.
for you. But all I can say is I really enjoyed the different perspective that we saw in Twisters 1 and Twister 2.
Yeah.
Right? And it's, again, the arcs and the character development were really, really well done.
And that would be a good time to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about Daisy Edgar-Jones.
We never had a chance.
You want one?
Are you seeing this?
We got twins! Twins!
So I said before that Daisy Edgar-Jones had a lot of Helen Hunt spirit in her. And I think she's a natural brunette. And I think this is the first time we've seen her blonde. So I think, in a sense, the director, maybe not, I'm not sure, also tried to replicate Helen Hunt within her.
Okay.
Because I don't see any reason for her to be blonde. We don't exactly see her parents. That's not
true.
a huge
That's
thing.
true.
So she could have been a brunette, but they insisted on her being blonde. So I think there was very much for the audience to go, oh yeah, remember Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton?
Yeah.
Because Bill Paxton, in a sense, even though he wasn't a redneck, he still had some rough and tumble
Yep.
about him.
Country
which-
boy.
Country boy.
A country boy.
Which is what Glenn Powell also exudes. Which is why I feel like there's a lot of subtle nods to the original, whether you like it or not, which I feel it wasn't fully out there, which I appreciated. It's not like, hey, remember this character?
Yeah.
It's things like the red pickup truck.
Yep.
Red pickup truck was quite famous in the original, and now Glenn Powell's driving it. So there was that nice subtle nod. In the trailer, you saw that line, "It's twins," which is another line from the film. And like we said before, there may not be a cow, but there's a chicken.
Yeah.
Which it was very clear the way that it was shot and the humor of it.
I just want to put it out there that I'm truly
Yeah.
upset that they bring in so many nods to it, from the previous film.
Yeah.
And we don't even get one single cow. There was a scene, quick spoiler, there was a scene when there's a field of cows.
Yeah.
I would have been happy if just one of them got sucked in. That's all. That's all I'm going to say.
That's on you because, I'm team #justice for cows.
Just one cow.
But yes, there was a chicken which was very reminiscent of the scene from the first Twister film. So I like the fact that they don't outwardly do it, but it is set in the same universe, so it's good to have some nods in there. And also, Bill Paxton's son had a small role in this as well.
Oh, really?
In the beginning, one of her friends,
Okay.
I think the tall guy, the tall guy with the slightly longish hair,
Okay.
this quite skinny white guy, that was Bill Paxton's son.
Oh.
So it's nice that they had his son come in for a brief cameo.
Okay.
Like, not a lot of people know it, but I did my research on the Wikipedia. I was like, which did he play? And I think there was one behind the scenes video or something where they mentioned that. And I'm like, oh,
Okay.
that is great. Because, of course, Bill Paxton can't come back because he unfortunately passed on a few years ago. Funnily enough, Helen Hunt actually wrote a screenplay for a sequel, but it never got made.
Right.
So was there any hard feelings? Did they not want to get Helen Hunt back? That I don't know. But it would have been nice. But also I feel like it's okay. It's okay that she wasn't there. We have her in spirit with Daisy Edgar-Jones.
Yeah.
And she really carried the film for me because, like it or not, she is the center point for you. She is the main driving element within the story. And to see that arc of hers, similar to Glenn Powell, of going from meek and insecure to this confident woman again who just chases through a tornado, that was great to see her ups and downs. And she is a really great actress. Like, I think I first saw her in a series, Normal People, Good People. It was a series on HBO. It was basically talking about relationships and whatnot.
Okay.
If you could pull up the name, that would be great because you have the laptop. But it was from there I knew she would be something. And sure enough,
People, it's called
Normal People, right?
Right.
It's a great series. Go and watch it if you can. It's not to say it's intense. It's very emotional, so it might tug at your heartstrings a little bit. But there was something there, and both of them. Who was the other actor? What's his name?
Which one? In Normal People?
Yes.
In Normal People, the other actor would be Paul Mescal.
Paul Mescal has also gone on to do great things. He's the lead in Gladiator 2.
Oh, so it's him. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
okay.
both of them have really started to make a name for themselves for good reason. That show really had some good acting in it. And she, again, was great in this, and I cannot wait to see what more she does because I think her style of acting is very subtle and very inwards. There's a lot of emotion there that you can see just from her eyes. And I think that's the kind of acting that I enjoy because it's not, look, I'm sad. It's like, no, we know you're sad. You feel it. So I'm genuinely looking forward to see what she does next. And yes, she is very attractive, Kelvin.
Okay.
She is.
Yes, she is.
So
the whole film, I was just looking at her and Glenn. I was like, beautiful people.
Beautiful
Beautiful
people.
people.
Twisters. The tag for that. Twisters. Running away with beautiful people.
That's a beautiful one, right? Can we take a moment to appreciate the truck?
Oh, I love that truck.
Can we just take again? Stop me if I'm going into spoiler territory.
Yeah.
Because right now, if you can tell, I'm a bit reserved because I'm terrified to spoil the film for them, right? So tell me or just stop me.
Okay.
You can even smack me if you want, right?
Don't give me that permission.
So I just want to talk about the red truck.
Yes.
Right. If you've seen the trailers, you probably seen the truck.
Yeah.
Calling it a truck is such an understatement.
Yeah.
Because it's more of like a multi-purpose APC, like a anti-personnel carrier.
Yep.
It's weighted. It's big. It's red. It shoots rockets.
Yeah. Shoots fireworks.
And the creme de la creme, right? Which is the drill
Yes.
that drills into it. Because
I thought that was genius. The
there
drills.
was one scene where it didn't make sense to me, and I thought it was a big plot hole.
Yeah.
Where he was literally driving into
Yes.
the tornado. I was like, bro, wouldn't you die?
Yeah.
And then later on, only we found out that he customized drills in his truck to drill the truck down,
Yeah.
so it wouldn't get sucked up.
Yeah.
You know how effective that is in real life? I probably don't know, right?
Yeah.
But please don't try that at home. Amazing. The truck itself has its own personality, and anytime the truck got hurt, I was like, no, it's so beautiful. Don't hurt the truck.
But like I said, that drilling thing was, I thought, a stroke of genius because
It is.
the first twister, they were always around the twister because, of course, you couldn't go in, otherwise you would get sucked up. And the fact that they thought about this and where he could be right in the middle, in the eye of the twister, and he'd be fine. I thought that was brilliant thought. It's so simple, but brilliant at the same time.
And if you've seen it in the trailers, you know, the ingenious stroke for me was in typical YouTube fashion. YouTubers fashion. He drove the bloody truck into the tornado and shot fireworks lah.
Yeah.
Like, who would have thought about that?
YouTubers.
Like, yeah, YouTubers, right?
Yeah.
But still, in real life, if I saw someone do it, I'll be like, this guy is either the dumbest mother thing ever or the smartest mother thing ever.
Like you said, Jake Paul, Logan Paul,
Exactly that, right?
except smarter.
Yeah.
They're
yeah.
not running around Japan
Yeah.
causing chaos.
Right. And speaking about being smarter, I feel like that's an amazing segue into Glenn Powell's character as well. Because if you see him in the first few shots where he was just freshly introduced, right? The way he was introduced by Ramos's character was like, oh, you know, those are just hillbillies, redneck that don't know what the hell they're doing, you know. Just to find out later on that he's actually very, very intelligent.
Yeah.
Right? And I feel like the chemistry between Glenn Powell and Daisy Edgar-Jones' character blended so well.
Yes.
Very strong my opinion, very strong chemistry between these two actors. And I felt like just because of the chemistry there, it really made you feel like you are just a perv eavesdropping and peeping into their lives of this entire journey of them chasing twisters or tornadoes.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was made so well, and the casting, the director did so well picking not only the both of them but everyone else.
Yeah.
Right. There's one thing that I did not mention. Remember at the end of the film when we were just watching the what do you call it?
The credits.
The credits, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, Nick, who's Lee Isaac Chung? Because film was shot in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
It's rednecks, you know, it is cowboys, hillbilly. I was expecting a very white Caucasian director. And then when I saw, you know, the credits roll, I was like, Lee Isaac Chung. I didn't know who was that. And I was like, Nick, who's that? And he's like, oh, it's the director from Minari.
Yeah.
And it's fine. In Minari, there was some aspects of, you know, Asian cowboys.
Yeah.
Right? But if you would have told me this was actually done by an Asian director, I'd be like, bro, no way lah, don't lie to me. he did it so well,
Yes.
right? Execution, like you mentioned, there was a lot of homage back to the original Twister film,
Yeah.
right? And everything pieced so well together that you feel like you're watching a Twister 2.0.
Yes.
Because until now, I still don't know how to categorize it. It's not really a sequel, right?
it's called a standalone
right.
sequel.
Yeah, it's a standalone sequel. How I'm telling my brain is it's just an alternate universe of the original Twister that we saw, and just everything, from the director to the cast to the story to the plot. Here's how I'm going to put it. It made me feel like I was 7 again, watching Twisters for the first time.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
That's a very good way of putting it. But I agree with you because I feel like this is his first big, massive feature film. Like, Minari got some accolades, but I wouldn't consider it big feature film. It's still very much an indie film. And I think that's the thing with indie filmmakers. When they start doing a big feature film like this, like how... I feel so bad. I can't remember her name. The director of Eternals, who went from indie to
Chloe Zhao.
Chloe Zhao. Like when Eternals is not exactly a good representation because that wasn't a good film. But indie filmmakers know how to work within a tight budget. So when they're given a much bigger budget, they're still so used to working on a tight budget, which is why this whole practical effects thing was a lot more smarter. Because again, as an indie filmmaker, you're working with practical effects. When you're doing a small time film, you don't have enough money to do CGI and whatnot. So you have all these techniques that you rely on, which works in a big feature film such as this. That you are relying on what you have around you to make it work. And you're trying, not to say you're trying hard, but you're doing the best you can. And that is what really works well with Twisters. And I agree with you, saying that you feel like you're 7 years old again, because this does feel like an old school disaster film. It has heart, it has story, it has massive tornadoes and disaster, and it's a whole lot of fun.
And no cows.
You're never going to let go of these cows.
No.
Like, honestly, the second I saw the chicken, I was like, okay, we have chicken. Are we going to get cows? By the end of the film, I was like, I know Kelvin's going to turn to be a goat.
Yeah.
There's no cows.
I had to move seats away from you, right? Because the cinema, there was like this
the glowing light of the aisle.
It's quite glaring, so I had to move. And then when I was seated behind you, and then when I saw the chicken, in my head the whole time, I'm gonna swear this one time. I was like, fuck, where's the cows? Where's the cows? Right? And I was like, you can bring Dorothy back. You can bring the red truck back. You can bring bloody twin tornadoes back.
Yes.
You can't fucking bring the cows. Right? And I was like, okay, that's the last time I'm going to mention the cows. Okay, that's the last time I'm going to mention the cows.
Somehow I don't believe you.
I'll live with it. All right, I'll live with it. But
yeah, it does feel like a very old disaster film. That it has very much strong elements of that. And again, I keep saying it time and time again, it's because of those practical effects. In a day and age where everything is relied on CGI, where everything is filmed in a green screen studio or stuff like that, Lee went out to Oklahoma where it's set and filmed in Oklahoma. Like, it doesn't get more real than this. You're shooting in the actual location. You are using actual vehicles, actual destruction, actual effects. That's what makes good films, because you feel it. You are on the edge of your seat. And there were many times I was holding my breath because I'm like, this feels so real.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it work. You need to keep using practical effects, Hollywood.
You know what's my favorite indie film that uses a lot of practical effects?
What?
Star Wars Episode 4.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, because they didn't... Well, okay. Before Lucas decided to add CGI to it many, many times, the original film, they had model sets. The scroll was written out and they recorded it that way. The Death Star was a tiny model. The final scene where, who was it? Anakin Skywalker, right? Who went into the Death Star and...
Let's not go there, right? We're not going to bring up the Acolyte episode all over again. Curse that guy.
But when Luke Skywalker went into the Death Star, I mean, everything was all done practical effects. That still has such a nice realism.
Even
to
Jurassic
it.
Park, for example, right? If you want to bring in the classic greats of greats, right? Practical effects always work. Because, for example, from the actor's point of view, in Jurassic Park, everyone knows about this. The scene where the T-Rex was looking down into the car and then the kids were screaming.
Yeah.
People thought that they were acting, but little did they know the T-Rex head actually fell down.
Yes.
And it hit the glass of the car.
Yeah.
And the reaction that you get from the kids was actually real. They
Real.
were screaming for their lives. And
Yes.
because of practical effect, these kind of things can happen.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know how much Twisters 2 used CGI, right? Perhaps there are some parts of it behind a blue screen or like a green screen.
Yeah.
But overall, I would say the entire shot or the practical effects used made you, like you said, your hands was on your seat, right?
Yeah.
Like, will they survive? Will they survive? Because we truly don't know.
Yeah, like in the third act, I'm not going to say anything, but the whole third act with the water canister, the big water tower that fell and stuff like that, I saw the behind the scenes. That was all done actually with practical effects.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa. Like, I will send you the behind the scenes footage, but the amount of real practical effects they used in this was outstanding. Like, they
that's
really
mad.
put up big budget
Okay,
for this.
okay.
Like, they had massive fans to simulate the tornado in front of them.
Sure.
It's honestly, I'm so glad they do this, because this is missing, especially with undoubtedly Twister. I think I said this in my review on my channel, is the fact that it spawned a lot of tornado-like disaster films after it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Sharknado. But again, they all use CGI for that.
Agreed.
And this reminds us why the original worked so well, because there was a lot of practical effects when it came time to chasing the stuff. Sure, the tornadoes and things flying off, not so much. But everything else was them. Them driving, them speeding through to chase this tornado. Everything was real, and that's what made Twisters work so well.
How would you rate this film?
I would give it a solid 8 out of 10. And let me give you my reason why it's not a 10 out of 10. Because, huh? That's your 8 out of 10,
Okay,
that there's
fine.
no cows. See, I knew you could bring in the cows again. But the only thing that I feel, two things I feel are missing from this film. One, because of the great chemistry that Daisy Edgar-Jones and Glenn Powell had, I felt Anthony Ramos's character kind of fell by the wayside just a little bit. Not to say that he wasn't important and didn't have as much presence, but he's on the poster. His name is there.
Yep.
But I feel like he pops up every now and then. And you're just really focused on the other two. Like, he kind of fell short a little bit. The other thing is, again, the fact that while it does bring a lot of elements of the original, it just undoubtedly fails to replicate the impact that the original had. And I'm not saying that's down to the filmmaking or whatnot, because it clearly is not. It's for the generation that it's made. Back then, natural disasters was a very horrifying thing, and it wasn't in the age of Facebook or YouTube or whatnot. We never truly see Twisters in real life, unless you're in America or some other place that has that on a regular basis. But now, because we're so desensitized to these things, we see it happening almost every year via YouTube videos or the news. So it doesn't have that much of a terrifying impact as the first film did. That is the only downside. And again, it's just minor nitpickings. But that's why I give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And you, 8 out of 10 because no cows?
No, I would give it. I would give it a solid 7.
Okay.
All right, I would give it a solid 7, mainly because for one of the first few summer blockbusters that we're getting this year, it's also one of those movies where you go in, you have a good time, you come out, and you. For me, it's me reliving my childhood all again, right? That's why I gave it a 7. Other than that, it's great actors. Great place to shoot a film in. Oklahoma is a beautiful, beautiful state. Right. The actors chemistry was amazing, and I agree with you, Anthony Ramos's. As much as he's in the poster, he's in the interviews and everything. His character didn't truly shine.
Yes.
One of the reasons why I gave it a 7 and not an 8 is because I feel like the film tried to be too smart that it made the audiences feel dumb. There was a lot of over-explaining all the sciencey, fancy stuff to the point that it's like, I don't need to know that. I really don't need to know that. You can just gloss through it. Just briefly tell me. Instead of putting all the fake science behind it and everything. There were some points where I feel like they were trying too hard to pandaikan or like made the episode like made the film like super sciencey, super smart to be like, we don't need that. It doesn't contribute much to you, right? That's my point of view, right? No cows. Like again, you can bring in all this different homage from the first film, but you can't bring in a cow. That's just unacceptable, right? In gamer terms, in gamer terms, what I would normally use is like literally unplayable, right? Literally unplayable. But
You and your
other than
cows. I worry for your sanity of how obsessed you are with this cow.
other than that, the other actors, right? I'm very very sad that they had to go through like a trauma 5 years before, right? They had to go through a trauma. It's really sad that we don't get to see more of their back stories, or like it's like we just went in and then this happened, that happened, and then 5 years later.
Sorry, now that I remember, you're talking about characters. Another one that I wanted to ask, because I can't remember, I don't know whether you can. Now, in the film, again, don't worry, it's not a spoiler, it's in the trailer as well. Glenn Powell has this reporter with him.
Oh yeah, Ben.
Yes.
Ben. Harry Haddon Patton is his name.
Which is sort of a counterpart to the original film of Bill Paxton's wife,
Yeah.
as the normal person within the group. I felt that was very smart because you needed this normal person to be in it.
However, what's that? How is this done, right?
However, I feel like they didn't focus, they forgot about his character somewhere in the middle, because I feel like the whole second act, I was like, wait, where did he go?
No. The second act was, I don't know if I can spoil this. Tell me, I'm just going to bleep it if it's a spoiler. Was them building their romance.
Yeah, I get
that. So someone had to go.
Yeah, I get that. But when they are chasing the tornadoes and whatnot, where was he?
He went to another car.
Ah, yes.
He went to another car.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And then he came back in the third act.
Yes,
I was like, okay. It's just that second act. I was like, where did he go?
He came back in the third act where they were rescuing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I remember he said, I'm going to go in that car. I was like, oh, yes.
Now that's why he went, because the movie had to, put a part of like, there's love in here too. So
yeah.
But
I like that sorry, we're going to end this soon. But like, I like the fact that the romance element was not a major element of the film.
It's not in your face.
It's not in your face. And it's very subtle. And I like that. Because I didn't want that to go, this is about the film
I like that
itself.
you pointed it out, because the romance factor, if you are... You can see it both ways. And this is how I saw it, right? For a first-timer.
Yeah.
You can see it as sibling rivalry.
Yes.
Or you can see it as romance. But then in the end, they kind of like made it clear, right?
Yeah.
But it just... There were some points of the film, it just felt like you have two really smart and enthusiastic people that really loves tornadoes.
Yeah.
And they are fighting to see who has the bigger brains.
Yes.
Right? And some parts that just felt like sibling rivalry than it is like romance. And I'm happy with either or.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So, with that, if you had listened to the previous episode, and if you happened to notice there was a slight post-credit sequence at the end of the last episode, we came up with our own, what you'd like to call a TBW list. What was it? No, a meter.
Yeah.
A kind of
a
meter.
clapper meter.
Yes, clapper meter.
Yeah,
that was
clapper
it was
meter.
called. So, from your 7 and my 8, we would put this film. Now, I don't know if I can do the graphics yet. I might do this for you. But on the screen right now, we are giving it a solid 7.5 claps on the clapper meter.
Yep.
Which is on the screen here somewhere.
Somewhere.
There you go.
Yeah, somewhere.
So yeah, it's a good 7.5.
Yep.
It's a good film to go and watch, even with a date or with your bros. It's a lot of fun. A lot more fun than the first film was. And some great disaster sequence. It's an all-around good time. Go and watch it in 40X, because I'm sure, but only if you're physically prepared for it, because you're going to be thrown around a lot, probably.
I disagree with that. I would say don't go for the 40X, just go for the IMAX one, mainly because you want to be really...
That's true. Okay. Do the IMAX one first, and then just for thrills, if you have enough money and time, go and watch it in 40X. Because in IMAX, you get to see how massive these things are.
Yeah.
But in 40X, you get to feel how massive these things are.
All right.
And with that, if you want to follow us on all our social media, we are Clappercorns at Instagram, TikTok, and of course, YouTube. You can follow all of our social media outlets there. How can they follow Renegade Radio?
At RRP Malaysia.
There you go. You got it right this time.
Thank you.
I'm Nick Dorian.
And I'm Kelvin Tay.
Keep watching the movies.
Was that it?
Nope.